And one more time, it's the Horror Guys.
Episode 198. I'm
Yay!
Kevin.
I'm Brian.
And we're going to talk about some horror movies, aren't we?
I don't know. I'm going to be terrified with this one.
Very terrifying this week, isn't
What could be more terrifying?
Terrifier 2. Terrifier.
Yes. What do we got?
We got a brand new movie called Pearl, which is a sequel to the excellent movie X that we saw a short time ago.
Yeah.
And then we've got a kind of a trilogy of Terrifiers. All Hallows Eve was an anthology that actually introduced Art the Clown in one of the stories. And then we got Terrifier and the brand new Terrifier 2.
Sounds cool. Over at horrorbulletin.com, if you sign up for the free newsletter, what do we got there?
We got a bonus week. We got bonuses. Are we going to talk about the bonuses?
What are they?
The Skull from 1965 and Island of Terror, also from 1965.
I smell Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing, big time. And Island of Terror was one that I saw when I was very young, and I remember it really freaking me out. And it was one of those that I barely remembered, and all these years I've been haunted by that, wondering what movie that was with those creatures. And it was Island of Terror. And it was actually pretty good. It has held up over the years. You'll have to check out the website to read all about it.
Yeah. And we were talking about Pearl being the sequel to the movie X. I was just looking up. We reviewed that on June 1st of 2022. So just a few months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was very recent. And supposedly it was in the works already.
Yeah.
Pearl was at the same time. So they put that together so quickly. That's how they were able to.
Way back in June.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go even further back, 3 years ago this week, on episode 46 of The Horror Guys, we had some other movies. What did we talk about back then?
There was The Secret of the Blue Room. That was kind of a murder mystery, kind of a locked room kind of thing.
Lionel Atwill.
Yeah, and a classic old one. And I thought that one held up pretty good.
It's all right.
Yeah, it was not awful.
A whodunit kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And Captain Clegg, also known as Night Creatures.
More Peter Cushing.
Yeah, that was kind of a weird one.
Couldn't tell if he was a good guy or a bad guy.
Yeah, very, very gray. Yeah. And we had a Serbian film.
Oh, I remember that one.
Oh, that one is certainly memorable. Yeah. Yeah. Sex scenes like you've never seen before in a movie.
And hopefully never will again.
Yeah, that one's something. That's one of those movies that people are warned against
it's
watching.
On lists.
It's on many lists. You know, the most shocking movie that you saw, the most traumatizing movie. You know, people will bring up a Serbian film.
That's number one on a lot of people's lists.
It is. Yeah, it's quite a ways up there, but it was good though. I mean, well made and it's something. And then the last one we had was a Korean film called Thirst.
Vampires.
And it was kind of an interesting one. It was a priest that becomes a vampire. And it's not really a supernatural cause. It was a medical cause. But then he's got the thirst for blood, but he's a priest and he's still trying to be a good guy. And
3 years later, I barely remember it.
It wasn't super memorable, but I think it was okay.
I remember it got good reviews at the time. People seemed to like it back then, but don't hear much about it anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of faded away.
All right. Well, over at horrorbulletin.com, you can sign up for the email list and get those two movies we were just talking about there, The Skull and The Island of Terror. You can also pick up Horror Bulletin monthly. The 14th issue is now available. Get the paperback over at Amazon or get the ebooks from horrorguysshop.com.
Horror Guys Shop?
That's where all the horror guys shop.
Nice.
All right, what are we doing first?
Oh, let's talk about Pearl.
All right.
It's brand new.
X marked the spot. And X came out in, I guess, May or June of this year. We talked about it then. You can go back and listen to, I don't know what the old podcast number was, but I know we looked at it in early June.
Mm-hmm. And in X, it's a new film, but it's set a long time ago, decades ago, when porn was fairly a new thing, when they were basically filming it on actual film, 8mm. And it's a group
1979 is when it takes place.
Group of people that goes to this farm to shoot a porno. And the farm owners are Pearl and her husband, who are old people. And it goes poorly for the filmmakers. Well, this is, and let me jump in right into the spoiler-free. This is a prequel to the excellent X that came out earlier this year, showing us how Pearl came to be the kind of person she was as an old woman in that film. Here, it's 1918, and a young woman is coming of age. She has hopes and dreams and a very vivid imagination, but she's not quite right. And her circumstances start twisting her up even worse. And it's got a slow start, but it really builds nicely to a horrifying climax.
Yeah. And I should probably point out at this point, we don't have them yet, but we're going to have giveaways on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So if you'd like to get a copy of this, let me know at email@horrorguys.com, and we can get you I assume it's going to be a Redbox code, but we don't actually have them yet. But they're coming.
Yeah. Why don't you tell the nice people about it without spoiling it too badly?
They all die.
Well, I mean, we know how
we know how it ends.
We know how it ends. She survives and becomes an old woman.
Yeah. Well, we start off in an idyllic farm location, and you can tell by the style of the credits that we're in a classic era. The credits look like Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
It's all very bright and happy and cheerful and la la la.
And that's how her imagination goes. She dreams of being a big star and running away to Hollywood, and she's going to get discovered. And,
Well, we watch young Pearl dancing in front of her mirror until her grouchy mother comes in and complains about her wearing her dresses. Mother sends her outside to feed the farm animals. Pearl tells Charlie the cow that one day she'll leave this place and be famous. She talks to her cows like they're her audience, and then she kills the goose with a pitchfork. There's always a critic. She feeds the dead goose to her alligator out in the pond as credits roll.
Yeah, it's semi-tame. It comes when she calls, and she clearly feeds it regularly. And,
Very regular, or maybe not regularly enough. It's always hungry.
Yeah. Well, alligators,
Well, it's 1918, and Mother Ruth tells Pearl to quit dancing as it's selfish.
She's very strict.
Yeah.
Not religious so much, but German old school and, very uptight.
Pearl's father is in a wheelchair and mostly unconscious. He can't talk or move at all. She has to feed her father. It's always Pearl that has to do this. The mother doesn't mess with him very much.
Oh, I think she does too, but she makes sure Pearl has her share of the chores.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Pearl has a letter from the trenches in France from her husband, Howard. Spanish influenza is rampant, and her mother warns her to wear a mask.
And that's another element of X, too. The two old people in X are Pearl and Howard.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't see Howard.
Howard doesn't do much here.
Yeah, not
gone.
much, but he's, from X that he's going to be around.
Pearl goes to town to buy some liquid morphine for her father. You just get that at the drugstore.
In the good old days, yeah.
She goes to the movies to watch the news and drinks a big swig of the medicine. On the way out, she meets the projectionist. He gives her a frame from the film that she just saw, and she loses the frame in the wind and can't find it again. As she searches, she finds a creepy scarecrow in the cornfield. She cuts it down and dances with it. Then she kisses it with an awful lot of tongue for a scarecrow, and then it escalates.
She does more with the scarecrow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
She gets home and Mother says she has to change Father. He's made a mess. We see that Mother is not much fun at all, and she does all she can to bring Pearl down. Mitzi comes for a visit. She's Howard's sister, and she doesn't approve of him going off to war. Probably he didn't have a whole lot of choice.
Yeah, probably not.
Mitzi mentions that there's an audition for dancers this Friday at the church.
Well,
they plan to go together.
I think it's mentioned, though, that he volunteered. Yeah, he didn't get drafted.
Did.
Yeah.
That night, she dresses up and sneaks out to head to the theater and talk to the projectionist again. He shows her a film that he picked out just for her. He picked it up in France and says no one else has seen it. And it's a full-on porno film from 1915.
And we looked it up, and it actually is
The
the first known porno film.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's a real thing.
Uh-huh.
He says that it's legal to do, but not legal to film, at least not yet. He accurately predicts the future of porn. It's going to be big, he says.
Yeah, and he's right.
He fills her head with ideas of leaving her parents and that she might not get a second chance later. If only they would just die, she says. Oops, she said that part out loud.
Oops. Yeah.
She takes father out to the alligator pond and calls the big creature over. She parks the wheelchair right next to the end of the dock. She gives a "this is no way for you to live" speech. But just then her mother approaches and says they need to go back to the house. On the way home, she finds a nest full of alligator eggs. Yeah, we checked how long alligators live.
This could be the same alligator.
It could be, but it's probably not.
It's probably one of the babies, more
Yeah.
likely. Yeah.
Pearl and her mother argue about the dance audition. "You can't keep your true self secret forever," says her mother. We see that her mother is just a little bitter about her life. Before long, something bad happens to both her parents.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll stop there.
And more stuff happens. And boy, I thought the actress playing Pearl was really, really good in this.
I was not impressed with her at all in X.
Not
but,
as-
she's
as
really
much.
good here, yeah.
Yeah. Mia Goth is her name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, very colorful. Supposedly, Ty West had a Wizard of Oz as one of his influences for this, and it's pretty obviously the case when you see the credits.
Yeah.
There are a couple of pandemic and mask references, which are kind of fun. That they were dealing with that way back in 1918.
Yeah, with the flu going on and everybody masking up in town. Yeah.
It's all good, but it does take a really long time to get going. A lot of setup in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Mia Goth as Pearl stands out with her acting far more than she did in the first film.
Well, and I thought the script was better too. I liked how this one was written better, and she's just got. I mean, there's a monologue that she's got where it just. Wow.
The first one, I mean, they go to a place to make a movie and they get picked off
killed
one at a time. It's
Yeah.
a really a kind of a standard slasher.
Mm-hmm.
This one is a little bit different.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, she's a nice little sociopathic farm girl with no regrets.
Mm-hmm.
And we both thought it was really good.
Yeah, big thumbs up on this one.
Well, next up we have a trilogy, sort of. All Hallows Eve is the first one, called 2013. Written and directed by Damien Leone. Stars Katie McGuire, Catherine A. Callahan. Hour 23 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. Spoiler free. This is an anthology in itself. And Art the Clown makes his debut. A lot of people have heard of Terrifier 2. It's big this year. It's one of the big horror films.
Mm-hmm.
So you assume
A lot of buzz.
Terrifier is the original, just as those two films. But no, there's a third one.
Yeah.
All Hallows Eve is really the original.
Yeah, where it all started.
It's clearly a low-budget indie, but it's overall very good and well worth the watch. What happened, spoiler boy?
Well, it's Halloween. Tia and Timmy argue with Sarah the babysitter about bedtime and candy. The boy finds a videotape in his trick-or-treat bag. I never got a videotape in my trick-or-treat bag.
I got toothbrushes.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. Well, both kids want to watch the tape, and the tape has a weird clown and some scary location shots. And then the story starts. A woman sits alone in a train station on Halloween night, and she sees the clown from earlier, but he doesn't say anything. Art never says anything. He honks a horn, does some annoying mime stuff, and then he injects her with something, and she hallucinates some weird stuff before she passes out. Well, Casey wakes up chained in the dark. There are 3 women there. "This is where he keeps us," one explains. Sarah and Kristen are the other 2 girls. Suddenly, Sarah gets pulled away, most likely to her death. And next, a mutated monster that looks a lot like the Toxic Avenger.
Oh, he sure does.
Yeah, grabs Kristen and cuts her arm off. So this has got the gore going, too. Art is known for his work there. Well, Casey breaks her chain with a rock and runs into the tunnels. She runs into a hobo. Next thing she knows, she's tied up and surrounded by cultists. Just gets worse and worse. There's a pregnant woman there, and one of the cultists cuts the baby out of her. The cultists tear her clothes off, and Satan walks in to have sex with her.
Well, that did escalate quickly.
It does, yeah. Well, Sarah, the babysitter, turns off the TV and sends Timmy and Tia to bed. She says this is too grown up for them. And yeah, it's not a kid's movie. Yeah. Sarah tells Tia that monsters don't exist. Tia says the clown could be real, like a serial killer. Later, Sarah puts the tape back in and watches more of it. And then we see the second story. Catherine is at home, unpacking boxes in her new house. Her husband John is an artist, and she's creeped out by his latest painting. It's an ugly face that John doesn't even remember painting. Later, the power goes out, her phone stops working, her car is dead too. She thinks something landed near the house. John calls, and he says to call the police. And then the phone cuts out again. And it's aliens.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Aliens?
Uh-huh. Well, there's some cat and mouse and hide and seek, and it finally gets her, and she unveils John's painting. It's the clown from the first segment.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, the babysitter again, thinks she sees something in the house and gets a little paranoid, but it's nothing. So then she goes downstairs to finish that tape. And a woman drives alone on Halloween night. She stops in a last chance gas station where she finds the attendant yelling at the clown we saw earlier. The attendant goes inside, leaving her alone outside. She goes inside and finds the clown sawing the attendant into little pieces.
Oops.
Yeah. She jumps in the car and drives away. Then a few miles down the road, she sees the clown on the side of the road and crashes. She drives away again, but stops when she finds another crashed car, and inside is a horribly wounded woman, like her face cut off. And when the clown appears in her back seat, she gets out of the car and runs through the woods. She hides in a barn, but the clown tunnels his way inside. He's persistent. She turns the tables on him and stabs him several times. She runs outside, flags down a car, and the clown drives up next to them. Then the clown shoots the driver. She wakes up in the clown's lair, and that's really bad. He's amputated all her limbs.
Run away now.
Mm-hmm. Sarah turns off the VCR, and then she gets a phone call from the woman in the previous segment of the video, phoning for help. The TV comes back on, and she sees the clown again. He walks over to the camera and looks right at Sarah and waves. Then she sees herself on TV with the clown sitting right behind her, but she breaks the videotape. So she's safe. But it's in the house. He's in the house. And that doesn't help the two dead kids upstairs.
He's already been working.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Art the Clown would, of course, soon reappear in both the Terrifier from 2016 and Terrifier 2 from 2022 as his own thing, but here he's just a character in an anthology. The segment with the alien is pretty basic and simple. I didn't like that part. I thought the alien was dumb. But the other parts were really good in a low-budget kind of way. Actually, the first and third segments were filmed years prior to the second tale and the wraparound story. So the two bits with the actual live Art the Clown came first, and the babysitter and the aliens were kind of just put in there as an afterthought.
And the one thing that I didn't like about the alien, I thought it was kind of cool overall, but at one point you can see that the alien is wearing a suit. We don't see the alien itself.
Right.
He's wearing a space suit, and it's she grabs one of the air hoses and yanks it out. Well, it's probably not air that it's breathing, but whatever it's breathing, and she gets the upper hand and struggles, and he manages to get it plugged back in, but that suit he's wearing is kind of fragile, and there's lots of tubes and hoses, and I mean, just yank them all. I mean, she yanked out the one and saw that the alien was struggling and then ran away.
Yeah.
Like, no, yank all them tubes.
Well, overall, it's pretty kind of cheap looking, and the middle section is pretty weak, but overall, I liked it.
Yeah, overall, yeah. And it's a good intro to art.
It is. So, did we watch a short film this week?
Airbnb, a brand new one from this year. Directed by Alex Manana, directed and written by Alex Manana. Stars Ashley Balote, Becky Bush, and Wessam Eldin. We apologize if we're murdering those names.
4 hours. No, 4 minutes, 55 seconds, so less than 5 minutes. It's a shorty.
And it's on YouTube.
It is. Amanda and Melanie stop in at their new rental place, and they're impressed. Almost immediately, we see that they aren't alone in the house. Or are they? The host seems nice, though. He even left them a complimentary bottle of wine.
Oh, that was nice of him.
Well, it does look like a nice place to stay. Too bad about that psycho in the closet, though.
Yeah.
It's short, but the whole story is there. We don't get a lot of backstory about the man, but do we really need that? The acting with the two girls is fine, the set looks good, and the situation is completely believable. It's definitely worth a quick watch.
And it's one of those where it's all the more horrifying because it is,
It
real.
could be real. Yeah, it could happen.
It's not monsters here. This is just people.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Which takes us to 2016's Terrifier.
Which is a monster and not a real person. I don't know. I mean, they kind of supernatural him, but kind of not too.
In the first movie, he was clearly supernatural. He kept appearing in front of the car magically almost.
And he popped up in the back seat.
Yeah. The second one, or this one, the 2016,
starts out, at least.
don't think he's all that supernatural.
But he comes back from the dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Blows his brains out and he's still alive. So
Was that in this one or the second one?
I believe that's the end of this one.
Okay. I don't remember now. They kind of ran together.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, his supernaturality is kind of debatable in at least one of these.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we don't really know. What happens spoiler-free?
Spoiler-free? Well, we don't really know anything about Art the Clown. He clearly enjoys his work, but why? Don't ask. Just sit back and enjoy the over-the-top gore and blood effects. And there are lots of them. And they're exceptionally graphic and realistic. The story is simple. People get killed by a crazy clown. It's good, but it's almost too simple in one note.
You got like Freddy Krueger.
Not enough of a story.
There's an entire episode, an entire movie about him being a child molester and killed by the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got Michael Myers that's got at least two different origin stories depending on why he's crazy.
Uh-huh.
He's either got the hots for his sister or he likes to stand on that spot in the window.
And Jason Voorhees is kind of a revenge thing, or
it's not even him, it's somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, these origin stories can get a little clunky sometimes. Art doesn't have one.
But he doesn't have an origin story. Maybe the Terrifier 3 will be a prequel.
Terrifier 3.
Young Art.
The beginning. We zoom in on an old TV where the mutilated woman from the previous film is the only survivor of that experience. And I'll tell you right now, this is confusing.
It is, yeah.
We talk about this woman and the show that she's being interviewed on 2 or 3 times during this, and I'm not quite sure if this happened a year ago. Is it happening as we speak? Or where does this fit into it?
Yeah, was that previous Halloween and this is current Halloween? It's the woman that got her face cut off that she finds she runs up for help and she's sitting in the car and she's basically her face is missing. And
maybe.
Now she's here and yeah.
Oh, well, anyway. That's a mystery. Although Art the Clown has been declared dead, we see him putting on his face, packing up his weapons, and getting ready for more action as the credits roll. Monica Brown is the interviewer from the show we just saw, and the mutilated woman kills her in the dressing room, and then she giggles. All right, well, Dawn and Tara walk home after a Halloween party as Art approaches. They go into a pizza restaurant, and Art follows them. Dawn insists on taking a selfie with the creepy clown. She is pushy.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's on board with it, though.
Art gives Tara a ring from a gumball machine. The girls find that they have a flat tire outside. Tara calls her sister Victoria to come and pick them up, but meanwhile, the guys in the pizza place clean up the mess that Art made in the restroom. At least until Art returns for them. Yeah, and All Hallows Eve, Art did something nasty in the restroom.
He likes hanging out in restaurants.
Apparently he's like painting the walls with poop or something.
Yeah, I think
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, that's what it looked like, yeah.
He is an artist,
after all. He is an
artist,
yeah.
Maybe he's a fartist. I don't know. Tara goes into the place to use the restroom while Dawn waits in the car. Dawn here's...
And this is a different place. It's just kind of a random building.
Yeah. Dawn hears on the radio about the people at the pizza place being massacred, but she doesn't get to tell anyone. Doesn't last that long.
Nope.
Tara gets lost in the building and meets a weird cat lady with a doll for a baby, and then runs into Art on the way out. She escapes into a garage and hides, but he catches her and cuts her leg. That always slows people down.
Yeah, it does.
Victoria hears about the pizzeria murders on the radio as she drives to pick up Tara and Dawn, and the radio describes Art perfectly. There have been witnesses. Art catches Tara and injects her with something. Well, she wakes up tied to a chair. Dawn is there too, tied up upside down. And he takes Tara and he hacksaws her in half vertically as Tara watches.
Dawn. That was Dawn.
Yeah, Dawn, yes. I thought that was probably the best kill of the movie.
Certainly gross.
Tara breaks loose and makes a run for it. She smacks him in the head with a board a few times, and then he simply shoots her when she has the upper hand.
Yeah, Michael Myers never does that.
No, Michael Myers, Freddy, Jason, those guys never use a gun.
They never use a gun.
Because they're not real.
They're purists. Yeah.
The crazy Catwoman arrives just in time to see Art finish off Tara also. When she goes back to her baby, she finds that Art has taken it. She talks to Art like a gentle mother, and Art ends up sucking his thumb like a baby. Victoria finally gets inside and finds both halves of Dawn hanging from the ceiling.
Ew.
She then finds the cat lady, Tara, and Art, and ends up hiding. There is much running and screaming in the old factory, and he catches Victoria and starts whipping her until Mike the Exterminator comes to the rescue. He calls 911 and tells them everything. Mike and Victoria head for the door to get outside. Mike doesn't last much longer. The police arrive, and Art shoots himself in the head. Oh, he's dead, right?
No. Well, temporarily.
Well, they take Art and Mike to the coroner, with more bodies to come. They're going to say, it's going to be a busy night, Mr. Coroner.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a lot of them out there. As the coroner opens up the body bag, the lights go haywire, the phone rings, and the radio goes crazy. Art wakes up and kills the coroner. 1 year later, Victoria finally gets out of the hospital after Art ate her face. She's mutilated, just like the woman in the opening sequence. So when did all this happen? No.
Yes. Yes, that's when it happened.
Well, Art the Clown and director Damien Leone must visit a lot of gas station restrooms. That's all I'm saying on that. I think I've been in a few that Art may have been to. Art never speaks throughout the whole film. He's basically a maniacal mime. The blood and the gore effects are exceptional and very well done. Art himself is interesting, but with no backstory or explanation at all, he's maybe a little too mysterious to the point of being maybe sort of kind of a little bit one-dimensional.
Maybe.
He uses guns, cars, and all manner of weapons, so he's no Michael or Jason, but he certainly has an iconic look and attitude. He is fun to watch.
He enjoys his work.
The movie itself is a fairly standard slasher film, but yeah, I think what makes this one good is Art himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was the end of that series, wasn't it?
No, they made a new one this year.
Terrifier 2 from 2022, written and directed by Damien Leone, stars David Howard Thornton. He's finally moved up to top billing.
All right.
Jenna Cannell and Lauren Lavera. 2 hours and 18 minutes. This is freaking long. Oh well. The gore is impressive in its quantity and uniqueness. Art is still just a clown having a good time doing what, clowns do. And sometimes he's funny doing it.
Mm-hmm.
This one doesn't have a whole lot of story to spoil.
I thought this one did have more laughs.
Yeah, I thought this one had more of a story than the others also.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, the first two, he just killed people. This one, there is other characters and there's a story.
Yeah.
Well, it's all well made and well worth the watch if you're into that sort of thing. It's still got a sort of a low-budgety look, but it looks, I thought, a lot more, high-budgety.
High budget, yeah.
In the old, but it's not, I guess. I guess it's still a cheap indie.
But the effects are still top-notch.
Yeah, we're not going to spoil this one to death, but...
And it said, and this could just be, publicity playing it up, people throwing up and people fainting watching it. And we didn't throw up or faint.
No.
But we are
didn't die of fright
We
either.
are hardened to this sort of thing, too. If you're a newbie at it, maybe, this is your first...
If you're 10...
Well, some adults, they're just not exposed or, familiar with this sort of thing. If you leap right into it, it could be shocking.
Yeah.
Anyway,
okay.
we weren't. Yeah, we didn't faint or anything.
The trigger warnings are greatly exaggerated. So without spoiling the whole thing, give us a start of what happens.
We begin in a dark alley. Art the clown walks out of the fog. We see him killing the coroner at the end of the previous film.
So it takes right off.
He writes Art in blood on the mirror. And he takes out the coroner's eye and replaces the one he shot out in the previous film. He also takes the brain and some surgical supplies. Then he goes to the nearest laundromat and does his laundry naked. Well, not naked. He takes off the outer, all his, everything except the underwear, basically.
Are you sure?
I don't think he's naked, is he?
I thought he was naked. That makes it a little more funny.
Okay. Well, okay, mostly naked at least, yeah. Well, the other laundromat patron doesn't even look up. They're asleep.
That was the funny part. He just sort of slept through the whole thing.
Yeah. And there's a girl clown there that looks just like Art. And they mime at each other for a while. And then the other laundry patron wakes up, and we see that Art is really there alone. Credits roll.
He's got an invisible friend.
Yeah, an imaginary friend. Well, we watch as Sienna gets her Halloween costume ready. She and her brother argue about the appropriateness of his choice. He says he's going as the Miles County clown who killed those 9 people last year.
That would be Art.
And there's a very funny line, not meant to be funny, where she says, "You wouldn't dress up like Jeffrey Dahmer, would you?"
Well,
this year, Jeffrey Dahmer was a hot Halloween costume.
He was.
Because of that miniseries. Or was it a miniseries? Just a movie?
I know. I haven't
just
seen
a
it
movie.
yet.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a hot choice this Halloween.
Yeah, and
so,
I don't
yes.
think they knew about that when they made this.
They didn't, yeah. Well, Sienna mentions that Jonathan is looking up serial killers. He's a weird kid. Sienna is into costume design and cosplay. And she has a short little sword in her room that totally isn't obviously going to be used by someone later. Well, we cut to the Clown Cafe, a food truck that advertises on TV. It's got an unusual jingle. Art the Clown is there, and the crowd loves him. Art gives Sienna a package to open. Inside is a beating heart. Then Art pulls out a machine gun and kills everybody. And he sets the singer on fire. Of course, this is all just Sienna's dream, because she fell asleep watching the commercial. But when she wakes up, her art supplies are on fire. And meanwhile, Art and his imaginary sidekick assemble weapons and get ready for the big night. We don't want more, do we?
Nah, that's probably good enough.
Yeah, stuff happens.
People die.
Of course.
Art is silly.
Yeah, and there's much gore and blood. And
It's 2 hours and 18 minutes. There's a lot going on here.
There's a lot happens, yeah.
Well, these actors all look like high school students. Well, at least they were high school students at least 15 to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
the 30-year-old.
Jonathan's a kid, so at least
Okay.
really
well,
a kid
there's
playing the
one.
kid. So, yeah.
That sure was a well-lit abandoned carnival they went in at one point.
Yeah, they make a big point about it being abandoned. Nobody's been there for years, and it's really clean and well lit up.
And electric, and the lights are on and clean, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, people in these Terrifier films all seem to live way longer than they should, considering the damage they take.
They do.
Beat them over the head 28 times with a board, and then they still get up and run away.
Mm-hmm.
The way the kid's father kept being brought up, I expected it to turn out that they were Art's children.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting
They were
that.
kind of foreshadowing that.
Yeah.
And then there was the missing girl, who was also mentioned several times. And, of course, we got the young clown girl, too.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't go anywhere either.
No.
Well, what was up with the magic sword?
There's magic and supernatural forces.
Why did she have a magic sword?
Because, magic.
Yeah,
Counter-magic.
a lot of things are
Good-
never really properly
magic.
explained here.
Good magic counteracting the bad Art's bad magic.
Yeah, but again, we get no lore or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we don't.
The gore in this is really over the top, and there are a few things I've never seen done before, which is probably saying something. There are several laugh-out-loud moments, but not too many. Say what you want about Art, but he enjoys his work.
He does.
I think we both definitely liked it, although despite the ads and social media, neither of us died, vomited, or passed out. We did giggle maniacally a time or two, so yeah, that's a win.
Mm-hmm. And overall, it's a good. If you're into this sort of movie, it's a good one.
You know, the insane amount of hype this gets online is not that good. This is not the greatest horror movie ever. I mean, it's good. I enjoyed it. I recommend it. But I'm not going to say it's in the best of the year.
No.
Probably not even in the top 5.
No. But watchable and entertaining.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
All right, well, that is our show for this week. Tune in next week. We're going to have 4 more full-length movies and a short. Of course, you get the bonus movies over at the newsletter. And if you miss out on a show or something, you can still find them all at horrorguyspodcast.com. This is episode 196, and it goes all the way back to, how far does it go?
Episode 1.
It does. There's 196 episodes you could listen to.
Dang.
Listen to them all today.
Just
would it have to be like at 20 speed or something?
Just put it on continuous play, 24 hours a day.
And pleasant dreams. But yeah, horrorguyspodcast.com. Every single episode is still there. Horrorguys.com, every single written review is still there. And Horror Bulletin are the reviews that aren't at the other place.
And there's books for sale out there, too.
HorrorGuysShop.com. All right, well, that's enough spamming for today, I suppose.
We are our own sponsor.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we'll see you next week.
See ya.